Let's do. Okay, so this is Puffed Up Cores. This one was. This is the first video. I think the only video that I've ever done on my channel that was not entirely written by me. So the brain behind this video initially is my friend Luke, who wrote an initial draft and brought it to me and said, "Hey, like, would you be interested in turning this into a video?" And I looked at it and I said, "Okay, like, there's a bunch of stuff that we need to sort of fix up with it, because I don't know, I have really stringent qualities that I wish a parody to have, and I like it to be really closely mapped, and there was a lot of finessing to be done. But it was like all the basic concept of it, like having Robert be instantiated as a black hole and all this stuff. A lot of it was his, and then I, like, especially in the second verse, I filled in a lot of the details. Oh, let's see. Raphael's saying, "Will you explain the acapella, like what every part does?" Yeah, I could do that. Like the Surface of Light would take a long time. There was so many stuff in there. There's so much stuff in there. There's like the doom 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 doo doo. Like the hand. There's like a bunch of different you know, and like ding 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 ding, like different percussion bits. At the end there, and actually maybe we can go back to Puffed Up to a Surface of Light for a second. Ah, stop. Why? Because there's actually, you can probably hear it better in the ending here, where I'm doing like where I'm not, with the lead vocal isn't in, so you can hear the background. There's this really cool like xylophone part that it took me forever. Like, I was like, there's something in there when I was listening to it over and over, and I couldn't piece it together. And then I'm pretty sure I had to do some like frequency tweaking on the MP3 to try and like isolate what it was. Yeah. Let's see. And that I did all that with like little whistle bursts. It was really hard to do because like it's hard to tune a whistle burst. Yeah, that's probably the most interesting thing in that. Like, otherwise there's a lot of like and like the yeah, lots of stuff. The only thing about using autotune is no harmonic seventh. True, and no justly tuned third either, which is sad. Let's move on to Puffed Up Cores and see what we get. So the original song for this, if you don't know, is Foster the People's Pumped Up Kicks, which is a song about a school shooting. And it's kind of shocking that that it's as, you know, it was as #1 of a hit as it was. But, you know, the main character is this guy named Robert, who's a fairly severe, problematic person. And, you know, it's about him and his inner thoughts and his family and whatever. And so I guess a black hole is as close as we can get in the scientific cosmological world to a psychopath trying to destroy things. I don't know. Black holes are not that destructive. They just hang around. Like, just don't fall into them. Even if you're close to them, they're not going to like suck you in. They'll just send you in an orbit. I mean, they will suck you in, but usually you'll just orbit around them if you're approaching them and not direct on anyways. You know, black holes are fine. I have maligned black holes in this video. How dare I? I mean, look, shout out to Uncanny Valley. Look at this. These heads in boxes. I had like a green screen up to my chin. I was like holding it here so that I could just have my head. And for some reason, I thought it would be an amazing idea to have, you know, heads on stars. There just happens to be. By this time, I was using Adobe After Effects, and there just happens to be a really cool warp function in Adobe After Effects that gives you this like crazy gravitational lensing effect swirl. So like I just had that tracked onto this black ball, and that pretty much gave me like a surprisingly, I don't know, cosmically accurate black hole. This works well on like a full screen computer, but that's what I was editing on, like a large screen computer. I think this guy is too small in a lot of scenes. It's nice to have my head inside a, like, especially because in the original the actual vocal has this like robot effect on it, and so it's like it's cool that I could use that effect and like put myself into the astronaut. Like I think it really works. But the fact that the astronaut, like I wanted the astronaut to be obvious and not take up too much of the frame, meant like I had to really shrink down in a lot of the scenes to make it work, and that means you can't really see the lead vocalist. I'm not sure I like that. There's Luke. Luke did a very good job playing like this sullen black hole character. Also, this was just like you'll see that this was just me going through After Effects and like you like just learning kind of all these like weird effects and tricks and stuff. And so like all these like zooms in, like this zoom in into the black hole. I like that. That I didn't know much about keyframing at the time. This sort of thing took forever. And then like zooming out of the window, it's very hard to get that to work with like 2D layers. And then later you'll see like there's weird things like bursting into flames and this like data, like I don't know, like digital stuff that shows up. It's just me kind of going ham and like figuring out what I could do with After Effects, and it makes this video like honestly a bit of a mess. But it taught me so much, this video. Like it didn't do very well at all. I think people saw it and they were like, first of all, this song is like 4 years old. We're not interested in it. And second, like what on earth was going on in that video? But doing this and like experimenting with it made me able to do a lot of other things. Hey, Giants. Aw, he's all happy and being a white super giant. Is a white super giant even? I think so. Anyways, he's a big white sun, and this is a little bit of creative license, I think, because I wanted to contrast like the bright white shining thing with then he like collapses and becomes evil or whatever. Like he's even singing along. Oh, and then making iron and nickel, and he like pulls out a bunch of nickels from his pockets. Yeah, so what's going on here is this is actually what happens with stellar evolution, especially like supergiant stars. They start off burning hydrogen, and that lasts for like a super long time, and then they run out of hydrogen and they blow up like as a red giant, because they're instead of burning hydrogen in their core, they start burning hydrogen in their like outer layers, and their core is just like a solid block of helium. Maybe not solid, but whoa, hey, my camera fell down. Okay, what are we gonna do? We're gonna pull this somewhere. It's off a frame, I think. Can you see that? You can definitely see that. Oh no. Is it out of frame now? Whatever. If it's not out of frame, it's just gonna be there for a little while. Yeah. So they're burning hydrogen. And then like they have a helium core in their center, but they blow up on the fringes because they're burning the hydrogen out in the outside. And then as they accrue more helium into the center, they get so much pressure in the middle that suddenly the helium is able to fuse into like higher order compounds like carbon, oxygen. So then they start burning again at their core, and they kind of collapse down for a little bit into a nice, more compactified shape. But then the helium runs out, and the same thing happens, that the helium in their outer layers starts to... What's what's the name for the outer layers of the sun? Is it the mantle? I keep wanting to say mantle, but that's like Earth. Um, and then that keeps going. So eventually that you have this kind of like onion layer structure where you've got like the outer part of the star is still hydrogen. You've got like helium. The corona, no, the corona's outside of the outside of the actual body of the star. It's like the chromosphere. I'm not sure. Shrek. It's not Shrek. So then you've got this like onion structure where you've got like hydrogen, helium, like oxygen, like nitrogen, oxygen, carbon. The last things to burn are like the last things that get made are iron and nickel. And at that point, the star is under an immense amount of pressure in the middle. And before I continue, I have to plug in my laptop because I forgot to do that. So let's take a momentary break. And I will be right back. I'm sorry about that, guys. I really need to have like a list of. Well, one thing I need like a "We'll be right back" screen for this, but then I also need a list of things that I really need to do before I start streaming. I think convective zone or radiative zone is probably what you're talking about. Yeah, the convective zone I think is what I'm talking about at Star Strike. Anyways, all that to say is that by the end of a supergiant's life, it's fusing iron and nickel at the core, and these are like the heaviest elements that you can fuse because after that, that's like iron and nickel are the most stable nuclei there is, and after that you start getting more unstable from being too heavy again. So like uranium's super unstable because it's too heavy and it wants to break apart. Hydrogen, if it's close to other hydrogens, doesn't want to stay hydrogen, it wants to fuse to be helium. But iron and nickel, they don't really want to do anything. They're as energetically compact as you can be, basically. And so after that, there's nowhere for a star to go. And that process lasts a few minutes, like that burning of... I think they do fuse iron and nickel for or one of the two for like a couple of minutes at like 1 billion degrees. And that's all they get. And then after that, you start this process of collapse where the giant, just the core collapses and it either turns into a neutron star or, in this case, a black hole. And the rest of it explodes. There's gravity one and went supernova. All the other stars with the puffed up cores. Ah, yeah. Look at those galaxy mouths. Those are a sight to behold. That's not a thing that you ever want to show your children. All the other stars with the puffed up cores, they better stay far away. Oh yeah, and the clapping pulsars, and he's just looking out. He's looking out from inside his black hole house and like angry at all of them. I'll get those stars. I will make them part of me. Past their own rush limit, all the other stars with the puffed up cores, they better run, outrun my pole. All the other stars with the puffed up. We shot that on I brought my green screen to Luke's apartment and we shot all these scenes there. With like a toy telescope that he bought for the purpose, which was pretty nice of him. The Roche limit, I think I've explained this before on stream, but the Roche limit is the point at which a star is close enough. Mikhail's asking, who's Luke? Luke's the guy who wrote like the first draft of this song and also played Robert the Black Hole. the Roche limit is where a gravitationally bound body gets close enough to another gravitational body that the gravity of the second body rips apart the first one. Like the gradient of the second gravitational field overcomes the gravitational field holding the first one together. And so it's not like if a star is going to get destroyed by a black hole, it's usually not that it like directly gets sucked into it, which is actually what I ended up illustrating because I couldn't figure out how to make Roche limits that tore stars apart with my limited knowledge of computer graphics. But more realistically, you would probably have the star coming in at an angle and like having a near miss, but the black hole's gravity would be enough that the shear forces would pull the star apart and sort of like fling it out into a bunch of gas that's like disparate, and then it would spiral around the black hole in an accretion disk. So now we're gonna get Robert going to the black hole to the blackboard, a black hole at a blackboard, and trying to figure out some physics, I think. Aha, we got Hawking radiation. That's like this is the classic like, I mean, I feel okay using this demonstration of Hawking radiation because this is the one that Hawking actually used in A Brief History of Time. This idea that at the horizon of a black hole, you have like everywhere in space you have particle pairs popping out of the vacuum all the time. So like an electron positron pair, or just like two virtual photons that, you know, actually, can that happen? Two virtual photons? I'm not sure. But there's Hawking's sort of like cartoon explanation of it was that you'd have like an electron positron pair, and one of them would like usually they'll come together again and annihilate because they can't survive. They're made out of quantum uncertainty. If they survived long enough, they would be made real, and you can't make them real without like violating energy conservation. But you can like they can exist for a very short time and annihilate with each other again, and like it's as if nothing happened. Hawking's explanation for radiation at the edge of a black hole is that one of those particles falls into the black hole and gets lost, and the other one escapes out of the black hole and is a real particle. And because there's this boundary where nothing can escape from, you kind of they're prevented from colliding together. That's like a real oversimplification of the actual calculation of Hawking radiation, and I think it's something that people get confused about a bit because it's kind of a cartoon. Like Gustav here says, why doesn't the negative particle escape? So what's really happening is that you've kind of got this inversion at the boundary of a black hole where like time becomes space and space becomes time, and because of that, like the entire notion of energy gets really confusing because energy is tied up with time. Like energy is the quantity associated with like time translation symmetry, which is like the fact that the future is like the past and like the present in terms of the physical laws. And energy is that. So if you're starting to like manipulate time itself and like the direction that time points in, it's really confusing to get a real good idea of energy. And inside a black hole, time actually points toward the center of the black hole. This is how you can't. This is why you can't escape from a black hole. It's not really that there's more gravitational, and like that there's. Well, it is that you can think of it as there's so much gravity that you can't escape. But the more geometric way of thinking about it is that time has been bent so much that it actually points into the black hole. Like the future is now a point in space instead of the usual future. So you're no more able to get out of the black hole than you're able to time travel backwards. And so because of that, you get these really weird things in quantum field theory going on at the boundary of the black hole where there are energies, like there are modes of vibration of the quantum fields that have positive energy that inside the black hole have negative energy. So you do get this pair creation, but it's not really like matter antimatter. It's this whole other thing of positive energy modes and negative energy modes that otherwise wouldn't exist and only really exist from your perspective outside the black hole. Like inside the black hole, they're not negative energy. It's just that time has switched depending on your perspective. I think I've got that right. Anyways, that's the Cole's notes of it are this: that we thought the black holes couldn't radiate, then that they were totally black, and then Stephen Hawking did this really incredible calculation, which is what made him famous, that black holes, in fact, when you put quantum field theory on them, they do in fact have radiation from these positive and negative energy modes that are around them. And so black holes very slowly radiate away. And as they get smaller, they radiate faster until they disappear in like a burst of energy. So that if you leave it, we can thermalize, but Rob's too cool to just die. Yeah, so a black hole of like Robert's like star kind of magnitude, like it's radiating at an incredibly weak rate. It's 0.62 nanokelvin. Compared to like the cosmic microwave background is here at like 2.7 Kelvin. Here's me at body temperature, 310 Kelvin. Here you can see, if we back up a little bit, I think Rob's doing the calculation of how much. Yeah, there's the equation for the mass of the black hole, for the temperature of the black hole. You can see it's a really cool formula because it's got pretty much all of the crazy constants of physics in it. It's got h bar, which is like the signature constant of quantum mechanics. It's got the speed of light, which is the signature constant of special relativity, and it's got the Einstein's gravitational constant, or Newton's gravitational constant, which is it's the signature of general relativity. So you've got quantum mechanics, special and general relativity, and thermodynamics, like all in one equation. And the larger your mass is here in the denominator. The larger your mass is, the less you radiate, so the colder you are. And the reason for that is that the radiation is proportional to not the actual strength of the gravitational field, but how much it's changing across the horizon. And a small black hole, even though it has overall a smaller gravitational field, its horizon is also further in, so it's changing like across the horizon. At that point, the gravitational field is changing more rapidly, and that's what, like, you can think of it as that change in the gravitational field is enough to rip apart these particles and push them to one side or the other of the horizon. And the larger your gradient is, the more of these particles you can rip apart and send flying out of your black hole to radiate. Too cool to just die. If he did, we don't know what happens to the information in superbad. I love how Robert comes to the conclusion that he's too cool to just die, and then he's sad. I'm not sure what to say about that. Here we've got we're talking about. So if we don't know what happens to the information in the supermass. This is black hole information theory. The problem that we have now with black holes is, now that we know that they can radiate, that they can give off particles and they evaporate immediately, there's an information problem. So quantum mechanics says that in quantum mechanics, information is conserved. All the information in the past just evolves according to the Schrodinger equation toward the future. And that's all fine and dandy. The problem is that a black hole, the singularity in the middle of the black hole, because time points towards that singularity inside the black hole, that represents like that's like an end of time for anything that goes in. So all the information must hit the singularity at the center. And then what happens to it? Like, does it get destroyed? Is there some sort of does the singularity, if you zoomed into it enough and had a theory of quantum gravity, actually have some sort of structure that preserves the information? The tricky thing about it is that your singularity is always hidden behind the event horizon, and the particles that radiate away from the black hole radiate from the event horizon. So if all the information is trapped at the center, and then all the particles radiate outwards until there's no black hole left from the outside, and there's no way for anything to travel from the center of the black hole to the edge, because that's literally backwards in time, how on earth is information preserved once the black hole is gone? It's a really challenging question, and like there are a few theories about it. One is like it's really hampered by the fact that nobody has a good theory of quantum gravity, but one of them is that there actually is no center of a black hole, and actually all the information about the center is encoded on the boundary, which would allow it to, come off of the boundary and escape into space, and there's no problem. This is like this holographic principle. There's also, there are other ideas like firewall theory, which you'll see in just a second, which is, it's basically a notion that by the time your black hole is old, it's radiated so much of its information that there's not enough information left in the interior to like sustain an actual space. And so if you fell into an old black hole, the space in the interior would essentially already be gone, radiated away. And instead there's just like a firewall that you hit and nothing happens, and you like instantly evaporate. But this would only be for old black holes that have already radiated away all of their information. So it's black hole information theory is a really weird subfield of physics, and it seems to me that nobody's got a good solution to what's going on with radiating black holes. It's really at the cutting edge. So like I'm just like spitfiring ideas. So nobody knows what happens to the information. It could have hair, which is black hole. There's this famous phrase, black holes have no hair, which is that there's no information encoded on their boundary. But maybe we're wrong in the quantum view, and maybe it does have information coded on the boundary. So maybe it has hair. Maybe it's a firewall. Maybe black holes don't even exist because there's nothing on the interior. So there's that lyric. Man, this is informationally dense, I'm realizing. I mean, that hair is the hair and the fire, definitely fever dream material. So here's Robert in the corner here. He's working out. He's like becoming self-aware here, right? This is sort of what's going on cartoonishly. So he starts with Newton's gravity, and he's like, no, that's not good enough. Newtonian gravity doesn't predict me. I'm going to use the Einstein equations. And then like he's trying to figure out how to get this star to become part of him, right? So here's the Einstein equations, and then he's like characterizing himself with the Schwarzschild metric of the black hole. But this is so many like in physics in jokes in this one. This is what's called the Kruskal diagram of a black hole. It's a really weird way of like, how would you describe the Kruskal diagram? So in this diagram, it's like a coordinate transformation of the black hole, so you can sort of visualize it on a plane. In this diagram, the event horizon is this diagonal line here, and the singularity. So the middle of the black hole has been turned into this line, and you might think, wait, why is that a line? Isn't the center of a black hole a point? No, the center of a black hole is a line, because it's in terms of space-time, the center of the black hole has a world line. It's a single point, but traveling through time. But because time has now become a spatial direction towards the black hole, that center point is actually a line in space at a single point in time, instead of being a line in time at a single point in space. And then the thing with the Kruskal diagram is it shows you that there's this sort of extended solution to the black hole that you can write down. Like what we know about a black hole is pretty much this upper right hand side. But there's this natural extension to the coordinates that lets you complete the plane to this bottom, and it gives you like no one's sure what to do with this part of it. This is where you get these ideas of like maybe if you could travel faster than light, you could go through the center of the black hole and miss its singularity and wind up in like a parallel universe, which would be over here. Or maybe a black hole is this is an eternal black hole. Eternal black holes are only theoretical, and they're always paired with something like this, which is like a white hole. But people have shown a white hole would be like the time reversal of a black hole. But people have shown that for actual collapsing black holes, there's definitely not this section of the diagram, so you don't have to worry about like a potential white hole in the far past. I don't know if what's said about this sort of like alternate universe over here. I'm pretty sure for like a black hole that collapses, you just have this part, which is the part that like naively makes sense. And this ends up kind of being a theoretical construct. Better stay far away, past their own rush limit. All the other stars with the puffed up cause they better. Ah, see, he's written down the equations for a charged black hole and becoming this is a weird, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Becoming aware of them and developing lightning powers, which is just a setting in After Effects that I discovered. And I was like, whoa, I could make him have lightning powers for this one little joke. So here's a charged black hole has some different properties because black holes can carry charge if you put more positrons in them than electrons or vice versa or whatever. And now Robert can shoot lightning. And there's the spinning black hole, a Kerr black hole, which has some interesting properties. For example, it has this frame dragging effect where there's a region outside the event horizon where it's impossible to go left or like it's impossible to travel in one direction of space. You can only go around the black hole in the direction it's spinning. You can't go the other way. So that's kind of interesting. And you see Robert twirling in delight. And figuring out his Roche limit. And still we've got this, yikes. Look, I'm being swallowed by a sentient galaxy that's singing about a black hole that resides far away from it. Hey, what's going on here? Pac-Man? I was really proud of making Pac-Man out of this the nebula. What's this Is this the Eagle Nebula? I made Pac-Man out of the Eagle Nebula, because I needed something for him to nom. So I have him nomming neutron stars while little star ghosts try to get out of his way. It's weird. And here is just just keep nomming, keep getting bigger. Right, Robert is about to unleash his power. Hey, you can see the pulsars redshifting as they approach the black hole. Yeah, you're right, Starstrike. It's the Pillars of Creation. I'm sorry. All right, so I'm not sure what's going on in this final scene, but I think the idea is that like now Robert has basically uncovered the mysteries of the universe, become a self-aware black hole, and is essentially the ultimate being and can like manipulate space and time. Or maybe it's just anthropomorphizing the way that black holes tend to grow over time. I really like these. Is this the Pleiades? Yeah, I think I made the Pleiades here. Pleiades? I'm not sure how you pronounce that. But they're doing that like the whole time. I kind of like that. This is a song that's very based on loops that just add up. So it was nice to give every loop kind of its own like star type. Oh, there I go. I'm gone. We like filmed all of these. We just put Luke in front of the green screen and like filmed a bunch of these kind of like anime power moves. And then afterwards I had to figure out what to do with them. And I feel like I didn't quite get the epic scale that I was hoping for. I think I probably could have done more with well, if I'd known more about animation at the time. But it's a good shot, you know. Who are you? And you get pulled into the black hole, and that's the end.
Hey, musical scientists. Hope you
I'm still doing that same thing.
enjoyed this fever dream.
But I even call it a fever dream at the time. It's like my favorite phrase to describe this video because it's just so weird. Ooh, I had launched a Patreon, and I have a whole lot of things there. I had started a podcast. There was a lot going on, and I was gonna promote all of it.
Dream of a video. This video was a joint creative endeavor by me and my friend Luke Bailey, who wrote the initial draft of the song and also starred as Robert. Thanks, Luke. Great idea, great interpretation of a power-drunk black hole. If you like the song, it's on iTunes, or it will be very soon, and Bohemian Gravity posters are still up for grabs on DFTBA Records. For those of you who got the...
Yeah, Melissa, there's so much info on it. Like, that was more I feel like it was more the theme back in the day. We forget the era before YouTube got rid of annotations and implemented like a unified like 20-second end screen that you had to use. Like when it was just everyone figuring out everything for itself, like there was a lot of this stuff of just like peppering the end screen with annotations everywhere, like click to 100 different things. It's really bad marketing, but what did I know? I'm not a marketer, I'm a musical scientist.
The poster perk on my Indiegogo campaign, I just shipped back the signed posters to DFTBA today. I know it's been a pretty unacceptably long wait, but they are coming your way. Speaking of crowd...
I still have some Indiegogo perks that I from that campaign that I have never completed. That could be, you know what? That's something that's always like kind of weighed on my conscience, that there are some perks of that never got shipped out. And maybe that would be a worthwhile thing to like do on the stream, is like, hello, 6 years late. I'm very sorry, but let's actually finish these Indiegogo perks, because it's the kind of thing that like I don't know, it's like this weight on my mind of like, there are some people who never got what they ordered. And like, I know the main thing is that you're helping me and maybe you don't care about the perk, but like some people care about the perks, and I'm still not okay with that. I'm gonna have to figure that out.
Crowdfunding. Since the close of the campaign last year, quite a few of you have asked me how you can keep supporting Acapella Science. And as of today, there is an answer. I'm proud to announce that Acapella Science has launched a Patreon page. Patreon is a platform that allows fans to directly support artists by pledging to give a certain amount.
I think at some point I'm gonna stop watching the end screens for this thing, because once I get into actually doing ad reads, I don't wanna analyze the ad reads.
Every time we produce a new piece of content. You can pledge to give as little as $1 per video, and you'll get perks.
It was like Patreon was pretty new at the time, and it was really a game changer, because I like, aside from the Indiegogo thing, I didn't really know how I was gonna support myself with this channel long term. Like, when I did Bohemian Gravity, it was like it was such a massive success that like I had got like a few $1,000s in like MP3 sales, and like people were asking me to do like concerts and stuff. But then like by this time, like Eminem was like kind of a hit. This video was not really a hit at all. And it's like I've still got like thousands of people interested in this, but thousands of views on a YouTube video are worth like $2. And so like, props to Jack Conte, like Hank Green for doing Subbable before Patreon, and then Patreon for, you know, taking it and eventually making it better so that they amalgamated them. And like, that's the only reason I'm here right now, is really this. Like, I don't know what I would be doing. I'd be having to figure out how to like sell DVDs or something, which is not something I'm probably very good at. Sell more posters. Like, that's why there was more emphasis at the time of like, buy the song on iTunes and like buy this merchandise, because like, how else are you supposed to like keep the lights on when you have videos that take 2 months to make, and you know they're being seen by thousands of people, and thousands of people in the internet economy is far fewer than you need to actually, you know, survive. So shout out to Patreon, shout out to all of my patrons. Melissa Gevin says mixtapes. imagine me on the street corner like just hawking mixtapes of Bohemian Gravity, where they're like, "Hey, dude, check out my demo," and then the person takes it and they're like, I'm like, you touched it, now you owe me $5. Oh, I hope not.
It's ranging from early viewing of videos, free MP3s, hanging out with me on a Google Hangout, or even being declared our most esteemed musical science Grand Poobah.
Do we have a Grand Poobah right now? I think we do. I can't remember who's our Grand Poobah at the moment. I should really know that.
Most importantly, by sponsoring me, you're allowing me to spend more time making great videos and less time worried about how I'm going to pay my rent, eat, and live. If that sounds fun to you, go click over to patreon.com/acapellascience to...
I don't know what I was doing with this font. This is I don't know what makes a good font. I don't know, but I don't think capitalized serifs are really the way to go.
Learn more, and I will love you forever. A couple other things. I've started doing a podcast with my friends Tom and Simon called Up for Discussion.
Wait, this is bothering me. We're gonna go find out who the Grand Poobah is on Patreon, because you're right, Jan. I should know who the Grand Poobah is, and it is criminal that I've forgotten. It's because for a while, it was... Shoot, I'm even forgetting her name now. Golden Gold. I remember her website, Golden Gold. And now I don't remember. Hold on. Let's go to Patreon. Oh, maybe I can show you guys this. You want to see the back end of Patreon? Let's show you the back end of Patreon. This is the super secret. Actually, no, I shouldn't. I'd be giving away personal information that maybe people don't want to give away, so I won't do that. But who's the Grand Poobah? No, that's not it. Patreon changes its back end so often that I cannot remember how to get to the appropriate thing. Wait a second. Is Vitalik? Vitalik is the Grand Poobah? No, I don't think Vitalik is actually. Maybe we don't have one right now. Vitalik Buterin, the founder of Ethereum, gave me a big donation. But I don't think he signed up for a perk. I think it was just a one-time donation. I don't think we have a Poobah right now. We had one for a little while, but yeah, that makes me feel better that I can't. That I couldn't remember who it was, because the fact is that I don't actually have one right now, so that's good.
Where we sit around and talk and joke about random interesting topics. If you feel like sitting in on those conversations, you can grab them on iTunes or on SoundCloud. I'll put the links somewhere. And finally, if you find yourself in Montreal this Saturday, I'm performing at the Eureka Festival at the Old Port. The show is at 5:15 under the big tent. I think it's free.
Oh yeah, Eureka. That was a thing that happened in Montreal, and it was a real bomb. Like, I played to... I mean, it was fun, and I got to experiment with a bunch more like live looping setup, but I played to like 5 people who were, I think, all French language. And like my mom, I think, was the only person who liked what I was doing. I don't know if it was a bad time slot or what, but you know.
I'll put the event on the Facebook page, so if you want to know more, go follow me over there. All right, lots more ideas bursting out of this brain, so I'm sure you'll hear...
There were. This was the start of my real run of like the most productive time of my life. It was like maybe not this year, the year that this happened, but like this and the next year. Part of it was that like my Patreon got to a point where if I did a video every month, I didn't need to look for other work, and that was so exciting to me that I was like, I can do this. I can do a video every month. And I did a lot of videos, and you know, got good fast. But I wouldn't go back to that. A month is not long enough to make one of these. And I ended up, like, when we get to later on videos, you'll see me complain about some of the corners I had to cut to do it. And it leaves you kind of unsatisfied as a creative to have to cut corners in your own work.
Hear from me again soon. Until then, my name is Tim Blay, and this has been Acapella Science.
Acapella Science.
Hey, Luke got to draw the outro. Luke is a great guy. Luke is the only person who's ever been so. Quick story about Luke. He works as an app developer, and as most computer science types are, he's a lot more concerned about like internet privacy than most of us dum-dums who don't realize how vulnerable we are on the internet. And so he's really careful about like what data he'll put into the internet everywhere. And as a result, he's never signed up for my Patreon, but every once in a while he will tabulate how many videos I've made, and he'll write me a check, and he'll put in the margins Patreon. It's like Patreon except offline, and it's like the greatest thing. Shout out to Luke, he's great.